I think that we all kind of have this innate kind of desire to fixate on things that we cannot control. And what do I mean by that? I think there are two things in life that we categorize things in, which is one, the things we do control, the things we can't. And I feel like a lot of us always focus on what we can't control as a means to try and cope with things instead of focusing on what we can't control. And it's this sense of like not accepting the fact that gets us to kind of try to control the things we can't, even though we know we can't. And in turn, it causes us so much pain and so much sorrow and sadness. And I think the reason we do this is because we often hope that things can change, and we don't come to accept the things that are already there, that are already have happened. And for example, what do I let's go ahead and define the things that I think we can't control, the things we do control, right? Like the external things that are out of our control, like the events that have happened to us in our lives, things people will think about us, our reputation, our bodies, and the things that we do control are our judgment of things, and the way we deal with our impressions and our emotions, and how we grow as people. My take on things and what I think is that we should focus on the things that we do control, and in turn we lose sight of the things we can't, and so we stop focusing on them, and in turn we live a better life because we're more proud that we can control the things we can. And in a sense, a lot of people struggle with this, and a lot of people go through depression and anxiety, especially anxiety because they're scared of what will happen to them, or scared of what things have for them in the future. That's, I think, the main cause of anxiety is the fear of the future, and the main cause of depression is the regret of the past. And as people, how do we deal with such a thing? I think that you only get to live one life, and we all know this. And we all are mortal beings, and we all are about to die. We all are bound to die one day. God let it be not. May God not let it be tomorrow, but we will die on someday. But I think something that we fail to realize is that you cannot live a life you have yet to have lived in the future. And you cannot live a life you have already lived in the past. And so in turn, which life are you already living instead of the present? Which life are you willing to live instead of the now? A lot of the people don't realize that, and a lot of people get fixated on trying to change what they cannot change, and in turn is an external, in turn something they cannot control. So where do we look for that sense of control within our lives? And I think that that's in our present. Because where else can you work on yourself, and where else can you focus on the things that matter to you if not in the present, if not in the now? It's true that you can have anxieties of the future, or you can be worried about things that will happen to you in the future, but if you let it dictate the present, then what really are you living for? If you're living for the present, I mean, if you're living for the future, and then you're not living for the present, then are you really alive? Same goes with the past, right? I think we're going on a bit of a tangent, but my point is, past and future are things you cannot control. I went through a lot during these past couple months, and I'd like to say that this realization kind of helped me get through the things that I thought I could never get through, the things I thought that were to ruin me. For the longest time, I was kind of I didn't know what to do and how to deal with the grief of losing my girlfriend. Um, well, when I got dumped and I got rejected and so forth, and so that it was certainly something that was out of my control, but for the longest time I had blamed myself and realized, what if I just hadn't acted immature? What if I hadn't rushed things? What if I haven't done this? What if I haven't done that? And in a way, it was kind of like me focusing on what has already happened. And in the past, I'm fixating on what I can't change. It's not like at the snap of a finger, I can change what she thinks about me. And if I keep hoping that she will come back, she eventually will, because that's not bound to happen. What has already happened, and what will happen will happen. And an acceptance of that, I think, is freedom. And what more of a misfortune than not accepting the things that have happened to you? The only reason you are held prisoner by the things of the events that have happened to you is because you let it. Is because you let it control you, in the sense that you don't focus on what you can control now in the present. It's at the end of the day, it's all under your control. It's even the things that aren't can be under your control. And what do I mean by that? When I've literally just been sermoning you on things you can't. I think that the things that aren't in your control are just impressions, mere judgments. And when she left me, the impression was that she left me, that my life was ruined, and that I would never ever be able to find someone else like her, and that I've lost myself, and that I had missed out on her love, and that I'm depressed, and this and that. And what came out of it other than just anxiety and pain and sorrow, because I let it? What more is that, rather than just my judgment of the impression or the event causing that impression? What more is that, rather than just the judgment of me giving myself to that? It's kind of like saying, like, the man who judges the rain as a means that it ends his day is more misfortunate than the man who judges the rain as an indifference that he cannot control, and thus he continues to live his day indifferent of the rain. Do you know what I'm talking about? I I hope this whole thing is making sense, but this is my whole take. This is my very first video on the things that on this YouTube channel. I just kind of wanted to rant. I mean, if you enjoy it, go ahead and like my video and subscribe. I can't really control you into doing so. I just have done my duty of telling you to do so, but in doing so, I think I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, bit of a tangent there. Where was I? Right, judgment. I think the more an event has power over us is the more we have judgment, the more we pass judgment over to that thing. Basically, like, the things or the events that have happened to you, these externals, the events that you cannot control, cannot harm you unless you let it. Okay? The same way you don't believe that something else is something else unless you truly believe it. You cannot truly believe something is something unless something has forced you to believe it is that something. Right? I'm sorry if it's confusing, but take it as it is. Like, there is an impression, and this impression is causing me to feel sad. And in this case, that was the event of my girlfriend leaving me at the time. And to me, this was the most depressing thing ever, right? But why? At its very simplistic core, it was a mere high school relationship. It was a mere connection to a person that I barely knew. And because I judged it as something else more than it truly was, I let it affect my mind. Because your mind, if it's directional, if it's stable and autonomous, cannot be harmed by anything else other than itself. If your mind lets itself harm itself, then that's the only way you will hurt. In the same way, like, if your mind thinks you can control the things you can't, then you will be misfortunate because you won't be able to accept the events that have happened to you. And in the same way, you won't be able to accept the events that have happened to you because you judge it as such. And I think if we get rid of our innate desire to to control, and if we just take a pause every single time something misfortunate happens to us, I think we can just pause and think, is this really in my control? Earlier today, I had sculpted when I had sculpted in my art class a bust model of my face, for my very first sculpture project. And in the kiln, because of the air bubbles and air pockets inside the sculpture, it had broken into pieces. Could I really have controlled the outcome? And I thought to myself, sure, earlier versions of me, and maybe if this was me from a month ago, I probably would have bawled my eyes out, because I really put a lot of effort into that. And I did put a lot of effort into that. It's not saying that I didn't care about the sculpture. God, I cared about the sculpture. I wanted for it to be done. I wanted for it to dry out already so I could take it home and show my family. But at the end of the day, it was broken, right? And I can't control that. And I thought to myself, what else could I control? It was an impression making of it was that event that was making an impression on me. It was sad, of course. I was disheartened. I was crushed, right? It's normal to be crushed. It's natural. It's a human emotion. But it's what you make out of that emotion and what you make out of these impressions that make up what you really feel and what you really take out of it. Because once you take out that judgment, and once I took out that judgment, that sculpture was just a sculpture. Sure, it was art, but it was just a sculpture at the end of the day. And it was, again, something out of my control that it had shattered in the kiln. What the things I could control was how I reacted to it, and how I could react so that I could grow to the next time I sculpt. I won't leave any air bubbles so that the thing doesn't happen again. And if it does, then it's out of my control. I have tried my best. I have put my efforts into the things that have, that needed my efforts. And in turn, I have done my duty. I've done the things that I could control, and I left it up to fate. Amor fati is the word that is to describe one's love for his fate, a person's love for their fate, and whatever happens to them, and acceptance. And I think amor fati is a rough translation towards happiness. And I think that we can be more happy as people if we were just to accept the things that we cannot control. That's one thing, and I think that we can be even more happier if we were to train our judgments of impressions from the things that we cannot control. But at the end of the day, your mind is only as strong as you make it. Right?